Yesterday, the world lost Dolly Parton. As I read the news of her death at 80, I found myself thinking about something much bigger than her music. I thought about where she started. Dolly Parton was born into a family of 12 children in rural Tennessee. Her family had very little money. She spoke openly about times when there wasn't quite enough food. Their home didn't have many of the things most of us take for granted. Yet inside that little girl was an enormous dream. And somehow she believed the circumstances that she was born into didn't have to determine where she would end up. That matters to me because so much of what we talk about when we talk about resilience is overcoming adversity. But Dolly showed us something slightly different. You don't always have to escape your story. Sometimes you build from it. She didn't hide where she came from. She sang about it. That was her story. She wrote about it. She wore it proudly. The poverty, the homemade clothes, the mountains, her family, her faith, and the experiences of her childhood became part of the stories she gave to the world. She took what she could have made and made her feel less than, and she turned it into something that connected her to millions. She also knew her worth. One of my favorite Dolly Parton stories has to do with very little to do with her singing. Elvis Presley wanted to record I Will Always Love You. Imagine that phone call. She's on the phone with Elvis Presley. You know the story. You can hear the tone in the conversation. For a young songwriter, having Elvis record your song could have felt like the opportunity of a lifetime. But there was a catch. His team wanted a significant share of the publishing rights. Dolly said no. Think about that courage. Think about Dolly at that moment. She wasn't rejecting Elvis. She was protecting herself. She understood that an opportunity isn't automatically a good opportunity simply because someone powerful is offering it. Years later, Whitney Houston recorded the same song, and it became one of the most successful recordings of all time. Dolly's decision became legendary, but I wonder how frightening it felt before she knew she was right. That's the part of resilience we don't really talk enough about. It's easy to celebrate someone for believing in herself after history proves her right. But in that moment, it's so much harder to believe in yourself when you're standing alone in the decision, especially as a woman, especially when the person across the table has more power, especially when you're being told this is how the business works. Dolly knew something many of us spend decades learning. Know your value before someone else decides it for you. She opened the doors and then held it together, then held it open, but success alone isn't what Dolly Parton life deserves to be studied. Are plenty of successful people. What made her extraordinary was what she did with success. Her nephew, Brian Seaver, said something today that struck me. He described how Dolly opened doors, not only for her family, but for generations of singers, songwriters, musicians, and dreamers. That's legacy. There's a point in our careers where leadership has to stop being how high we climb. The question becomes, who climbs because we were here? Dolly became an example for generations of women. She built businesses. She wrote her own music. She told her own story. She controlled important parts of her work. She entered rooms largely controlled by men and figured out how to remain unmistakably herself. She didn't need to become less to become more powerful. She didn't need to lose her accent. And she didn't need to abandon where she came from. She didn't need to look or sound like everyone else in the room. She became more Dolly. And in doing so, she gave other women permission to become more themselves. That's mentorship in its broadest form. Sometimes a mentor sits across a table from you and gives you advice. And sometimes a mentor is a woman you've never met who shows you what's possible. Then she did something even bigger. Dolly could have stopped at success, but she didn't. In 1995, she launched the Imagination Library, inspired by her father, who could not read or write. The idea was beautifully simple. Give children books. Today, that program has distributed hundreds of millions of books to children. Think about the circle in that story. A little girl grows up poor in the mountains of Tennessee. Her father can't read. She discovers words. Those words become songs. Those songs help make her famous. Her success gives her resources, and she used those resources to put words into the hands of millions of children. That is not simply charity. That's a purpose. She took something missing from her own family's experience and made sure other children had more of it. That there is an important question in that for all of us. What have you experienced that could become something valuable for someone else? Think about it. What have you experienced that somebody else might find valuable? Your hardest chapter may contain something another person needs. Stronger doesn't mean unhurt. Dolly's life wasn't an uninterrupted climb toward success. There were health issues, business challenges, professional battles, loss. She had it all. And in 2025, she lost Carl Dean, the man she'd been married to for nearly 60 years. Just days before her death, Dolly spoke publicly about her own health struggles. And yet she was still talking about projects she wanted to complete, still creating, still dreaming, still looking forward. That stopped me because perhaps being stronger than before doesn't mean becoming someone who life can no longer hurt. I don't believe that's what strength is. I think strength is allowing life to change you without allowing it to convince you that there is nothing left to become. Dolly experienced hardship. She experienced rejection. She experienced being underestimated. She experienced enormous success, and she experienced grief. And through all of those versions of herself, she kept creating. What Dolly's life makes me ask. I've been thinking a lot about purpose. What are we getting up for? What are we building? Who benefits because we were here? Dolly's Parton life gives us an extraordinary example. She came from almost nothing financially, but perhaps she didn't come from nothing at all. What she came from is her stories. And those stories created music. They created family. They created faith. They created humor and dreams. Think about it, but they also created determination. And maybe that's an important distinction. We sometimes measure beginnings by what people don't have: money, connections, education, opportunity. The list goes on. Status, connections. But perhaps we should also, what did they have inside them? And for Dolly, she had a dream. Then she did something with it. And when that dream becomes success, she didn't simply accumulate. She gave. She created opportunities. She championed literacy. She inspired women. She entertained generations. And she helped people she would never meet. And she never, ever seemed embarrassed by the little girl from the mountains who all started it all. Perhaps that's one of her greatest lessons. You don't have to erase the person you used to be to become the person that you're capable of becoming. Take her with you. Take the hardship. Take the lessons. Take the mistakes. Take the dreams. Take the parts of your story you once wished were different and build. Because becoming stronger isn't about pretending the difficult chapters never happened. It's about deciding what you're going to create from them. Today, the rhinestones, the hair, the humor, and that unmistakable voice are all what matters to us, or many of us will remember. But I hope we remember something else too. A little girl from Tennessee dared to imagine a life much bigger than the one circumstances appeared to have given her. She built it. And then she spent a lifetime helping people imagine bigger lives for themselves. That's more than success. That is legacy. And maybe that's the question Dolly leaves the rest of us, leaves to the rest of us. When your life is eventually measured, will people remember only what you achieved, or will they remember something different? Will they remember what became possible for others because you were here? Rest in peace, Dolly. You showed us what it looks like to dream big, know your worth, give back, remain yourself, and become stronger through every chapter. This is Stronger Than Before. I'll see you next time.